General Chu, Colonel Ng, comrades from 1st, 2nd, 3rd ROSC, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and a warm welcome to all of you from the organizing committee. I've had the privilege to be the MC for you this evening, and the message from the committee is very simple. Enjoy yourself and let your hair down, except those wearing turban. Before we begin this evening, I thought I should just run down the program very quickly. We have kept it simple. In the army, they teach you 4 letters, K-I-S-S, keep it simple, soldier. That's exactly what's going to happen. Following our meal, we'll have a quick address from the chairman, followed by a brief speech by PM, and down memory lane by several men. And after that, more ceremonial, cutting the cake and so on. I will now ask you to join me with a toast to all the ROSC graduates. Ladies and gentlemen, while we're having such a day, I call upon Pu Tekin, Chairman of the Committee, address you. Tekin.
Okay, good evening and a very warm welcome to our guest of honor, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, special guests, Winston Chu, Colonel Ng, fellow friends. Before I start the address, I got a little photo to share with you, a little photo. So can you just take a look at the screen? Can you all tell me who this youthful-looking, handsome, good-looking person? Okay, you get a prize for it. Oh, if you guess right, you get a prize. Okay. PM has put his hand up, so he wins a prize. But the prize is to bring a glass of Blue Label whiskey. Yeah, this photo actually is, you know, it tells a bit of a story about artillery. As you know, basically PM started off many years ago, and this was taken, I think, down at the Muta Garage, where it was called the Hell Square. So, brings back memories. This is like 1975. 73. Okay, I stand corrected. 1973. So this is like 41 years ago. And PM hasn't changed much, as you can see. He still looks very young and vibrant. But he's got, you know, a bit of grayish hair. Looking very dignified. So we all try to be like him. And this is a good example of what we're talking about this evening's occasion. It's really wonderful to see all of you here tonight, and even a rarer honor and privilege to have PM grace this evening's reunion as guest of honor. Thank you, PM, for your kind presence. In spite of as for me, I'm just deeply humbled to stand here and say a few words tonight. I'd like to share a story also. Reunions are always full of stories, and this is the first one of many throughout the night. You'll see later. Late last year, when our 3rd ROSC got together, we had a dinner at Tambua Mas Indonesian restaurant. Our guest was General Winston. So after the end of the gathering, we all talked a bit, and I suggested, now that General Winston is our special guest, who can be much higher than General Winston, right? So I said, perhaps PM could come to our next gathering as guest of honor. So everybody said, I don't think you can do that. Like, you know, it's going to be a real hard challenge, very difficult. PM has got a heavy schedule and we got to really get in touch with him. But I got in touch with him, and can you imagine the joy I had personally? And I shared with everybody in our grouping, and PM said yes. And tonight is here. 8 months later, we started. This idea was mooted in October last year, and now it's June. And finally, we are here to embrace the whole occasion. And for this, I got to thank PM again for coming. Well, the ROSC spirit is very much alive, very, very much alive. Tonight, most of the graduates, basically from first, second, and third ROSC, they're all here. All of them are here, all the graduates, except those who have been taken away by business or health, right? You know, actually we had one of our sponsors, Ko Liang Heng from third ROSC. He actually sponsored quite a bit for tonight's occasion, but he had a very major, big business in Europe. So he called me just last week. He said, Tekin, can you please extend my sincere apologies to PM? And I would like to tell this PM that he says really sorry. He would like to be here, but he says his business deal, this is a huge oil rig deal in Europe, PM, and it's worth 400 million US, he said. So we have in our midst captains of industry who's not only captains of industry here in Singapore, but also captains of industry in the markets overseas here. So Ko Liang Heng extends his sincere apologies, and also Ko Chiwa from third ROSC, who cannot be with us, and he's also a sponsor, and BG Andrew Tan from artillery. He actually had an accident this afternoon. On his way, lunchtime, a van hit him from the back, so he had a bit of a whiplash. So we had to go for basically X-ray, MRI. He's okay. He's on medication, but he also extends his sincere apologies because he said it would be wonderful to get an opportunity to see you and talk to you. So what else can I say? In fact, many of us are already in our 60s and 70s, and we have in our midst basically octogenarians. I have to say we have Dr. Jerry Lim. We have Dr. Loh Hong Ling. I mean, they are fine examples of the ROSC camaraderie spirit. And today the spirit of ROSC is alive. Yes, mooted 8 months ago to get all of us together, but it is very much alive. And all of us here today, although we have not seen each other for a while, maybe first, second ROSC, and even third ROSC together, but I think it's basically the spirit. We just have to be here for that one dinner occasion this evening. Just the one dinner occasion. And everything's alive. The whole spirit is alive. It's just wonderful. I would love to do this all over again with the same committee. and I don't know, maybe I must get 4th and 5th and 6th ROSC. And then I'll probably have to invite the wives and employers, the spouses, because I get a lot of people calling me, says, Tekin, why are wives not involved? He said, why? No wives. I said, first time we tried, no wives. First time, no wives. We see how, this whole dinner, comes to. And then if it does very well, we'll invite wives. And then we'll invite employers. And it'll be such a wonderful affair. And I hope PM will grace the occasion again. So PM is nodded and says okay. But this time we'll have to get PM and also Mem Ho Ching to come together, right? Okay, I think he smiles, right? So I think that's fine. So, reflecting the true ROSC spirit, some of us basically, the graduates have flown in all the way, from China. Lo Chong Mong flew in all the way from China last night to come over here, have dinner, and tomorrow morning he's flying back to China. What else can you say? Really true spirit. And we have Chek Wing, from Dubai.
How can I make it?
Oh, okay, sorry. The next one. It's just great that we have so many friends, and we also have in our midst directing staff, CIs who are with us, and I must say that they have taken the effort to come to be with us and to basically have a good occasion this evening. So, you see, it's this unique closeness of friendship and brotherly bond, I think, which makes us so different. I think many armies in the world will basically give this to us. We've been successful in our Army's outreach program. The ROSC was a commitment, and all of us are here in view of that. And I'm proud to say that I am one of the ROSC graduates. Cannot be prouder. So, without further ado, we got a lot of stories. We have a lot to eat too. We have a lot to drink. I don't want to basically stand here so long and share so many stories. But I think all of us here represent the true ROS spirit. We are the good examples of the kind of men that our sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons would like to be. We all are. And I think we have to embody that whole spirit together. Yeah. So without further ado, I'd like to thank PM again for his gracious presence as our guest of honor. I'd also like to say a big thank you to all our kind sponsors for their wonderful gifts and donations. And of course, lastly, this always goes to the end, the organizing committee. They have worked extremely hard for 8 months. I don't think any committee have worked for 8 months to put together an occasion like this. And we all have got together over drinks, over a few beers. We chat. The meeting is supposed to be only 1 hour, but it lasts for about 3 to 4 hours. But it's the spirit. It is the spirit. So can I ask all the committee members to stand up and take a bow? So, like what Kamjit said, please enjoy yourself. Have a great evening. Let your hair down. Thank you very much.
Just to keep the momentum going, a pleasure now to invite PM and Chairman.
Friends, ladies and gentlemen, or perhaps I should say lady and gentlemen. Very happy to join you here tonight for a reunion of the 3 ROSCs as well as the DSs as well as some old friends. Very old friends, because some of you like Kamjit I have known since long before ROSC existed when we were in OCS. We started the ROSC in 1982, more than 30 years ago. It was a leap of faith because we then had reservist commanders at platoons and the companies, but not at the higher levels of the organization. Battalion PSOs, yes. Battalion commanders, no. Brigade, no. Div RT, all these. These were regular officers, UL appointment holders, holding jobs in schools and non-operational posts, but manning our reservist ORMAT. But our ORMAT was growing, and our reservist talent pool was also growing. And we wanted to make full use of this talent, this passion, this commitment to serve, instead of expanding our regular establishment and hiring more regulars to fill all these leadership positions in the SAF. And we believe that we could train the reservist officers to take on these positions. We studied the Swiss, and the Swiss, who run a reserves army like us, have this experience of grooming officers and over the years elevating them into more and more senior and responsible positions. And it worked for them. So we believe that we could do the same. But it was a challenging task. As Wong Kong Yip reminded us just now, Stephen, he did a survey, and at that time the impression of NS was not that positive, the commitment of employers was not that cooperative, and to find officers who would be willing to participate and make this effort was not easy. Furthermore, just professionally, the full-time SCSC was a 10-month course. How do you adapt a 10-month course to reservists who have full-time jobs? And how do you make it a flexible program without compromising the standards? And then you have to impart the specialist knowledge of weapon systems, of organizations, doctrines, procedures, tactics, strategies, judgment to civilians whose day jobs don't always involve these issues. But we decided to try, and Commandant SCSC, then Colonel Menon, and the DSs came up with a workable solution. We designed a course lasting 2 years, 6-month correspondence course, and 28 days of full-time instruction each year. And we took care to choose the right participants, because that's what makes it work. Those who had excelled in previous in-camp trainings and showed leadership potential. Those people with very diverse backgrounds, doctors, lawyers, architects, MNC managers, some in the public sector. And so we started the first ROSC in January 1982. It was a leap of faith, but it was a success. The students put in the effort, made the grade, and the graduates went on to assume senior leadership positions. Clement Hendricks became Colonel Hendricks in due course and became Chief of Staff of the Division Hub in 3 Div. Dr. Walter Chen became Chief Surgeon of the Civilian Resource Squadron. And graduates from the next few courses also did well. Johnny Lim became a brigade commander and mentor for officers in 2 PDF HQ. Colonel Sia Ken Hee became Chief of Staff 9 Div RT HQ. I must mention at least one or two. And there are many other battalion COs, brigade 2ICs, honorary ADCs to the President. They filled up our order. This success was a breakthrough for us. You may not know this, and we haven't written about this, but before we went along this path, we had a long discussion about this question. How do we staff the command structure of our mainly reservist SAF order of battle? Where do the commanders come from? And there was a long exchange of letters which must be filed away somewhere, MINDEF hasn't lost them, between Lee Kuan Yew, then PM, Goh Keng Swee, then Deputy Prime Minister, and Howe Yuk Chok, who was then Defense Minister. Winston, may remember. And the question is this: you have a reservist training cycle. I think at that time it was 10 years, later we made it 30. But anyway, 10 years is not very long. And if you want to retire battalion commander or brigade 2IC or brigade commander, you need longer than 10 years. And we need some people to go up there to hold those posts. So some people will have to serve more than one cycle. But if we only make a few people serve more than one cycle, they may switch off. the same way as officers didn't always work as hard as they should when we had NS 2 years for soldiers and 3 years for officers, and we had to change our system. So what should we do? And one of the options which we seriously considered was we make all the NS men, soldiers, do 2 cycles and the commanders would work hard. It boggles the mind to think that we thought of such extreme solutions, but we didn't know what was going to work. And it may have been necessary to do this to have the right incentives so that the commanders would work. So when we decided to choose just a few commanders and say we put you in positions of responsibility and you volunteer for a 2nd cycle, we had to be sure that there would be people who would volunteer in good heart and who would make it work. And the ROSC first one succeeded, the next few showed that we were on the right track and that we could do this and make it work and not have to call back another 100,000 NS men just because I needed a few hundred commanders. That was a great relief to me because by that time I was in the general staff, and if I had 100,000 NS men to march around the square every day, I wouldn't have known what to do. So we built up, we ran a total of 10 ROSCs, then restructured it and eventually evolved and became today's Command and Staff Course (NS). And the graduates have performed well. They've excelled in more senior leadership positions and won the respect of the men and of your colleagues who are regular officers, and thus contributed to a capable and effective SAF, credible, respected, professional, and able to deter others from becoming threats to us and helping us to be friends with our nearest neighbors. So, well done to all the ROC alumni. We've just announced recommendations for the committee to strengthen national service. The Minister, Mr. Dr. Ng Hen, just made the announcements a couple of weeks ago. We've revamped the NS Recognition Award into the NS Home, which is the Housing, Medical and Education Awards to support servicemen in the housing, healthcare and education, and put some extra little bit into their MediSave. We've provided life and personal accident insurance coverage to cover incidents during full-time NS and during the ORNS call-up periods. And we've got other little goodies in the package as well. And these are schemes for a new generation of NS, but they can't compensate for the sacrifices that the NS men make. They are sincere gestures of thanks for NS men and their contributions, and really gestures of thanks also to the previous generations like you who brought us here today. I should also thank Colonel Menon and his DSs for their hard work in running the course and grooming the graduates into what you are today. Many of them belong to the pioneer generation of regulars who built the SAF starting from 2 battalions. Pioneers in the SAF, pioneers in the pioneer generation package sense. I had to look at the list of names, and I think other than Raymond, who is about the youngest, everybody else graduates and qualifies. And quite a number of them were pioneers in the SAF too, from the first batch of OCS. What the book called One of a Kind. This was a book which they put together. I think Colonel Menon had a lot to do with that a few years ago. And this was indeed people who were one of a kind, different, determined, who accepted the challenge of going into a new organization which didn't yet exist, the SAF. And then needing to design an ROSC, design and implemented a program for the reservists, maintain the standards, and adapted the program to meet the reservists' learning needs and SAF's operational requirements. So, I thank you all, and finally I'd like to thank Peter Kim and the organizing committee. He gave me an email, sent me an email, asked me whether I'd like to come. I thought it was a good idea. I told MINDEF I thought it was a good idea, and they agreed also. So here we are tonight. Have a good time. Thank you very much.
share with us a little bit of the event relay.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for making our day by being here. You do us a singular honor. And on behalf of the organizing committee, thank you, Tekim, for putting this dinner together. When Tekim first proposed getting PM to attend this function, the organizing committee did not think it would happen. But we did not reckon with Tekim's compulsive personality. Within days, PM had accepted the invitation, and Tekim had sorted out tonight's menu with PMO. That was November last year. The organizing committee must have held about 20 meetings. Gerald Fu, Clement Hendricks, Chan Chik Wing, Sia Keng Hee all contributed seriously. Kamjit and I, being Indians, contributed mostly by making clever remarks. Which is why Kamjit got stuck with the MC's job and I got stuck with this presentation. In this presentation, I was tasked to take everybody down memory lane. I barely remember my postal code, let alone what happened 30 years ago. So this is going to be a broad review of the ROSC courses run in Salida. It will take about 10 minutes. There will be no lame jokes or other attempts at humor. PM won't recall this, but when he was first posted to MINDEF, he once told me that if I stopped thinking of clever things to say, I could go far. I either misheard him or took his advice, because shortly after that, I found myself at the US Army War College in Pennsylvania. Then posted to Washington, and while there, sent on a field trip to the Columbia Glacier in Alaska. You can't go much further than that. Anyone who is otherwise inclined should take PM very seriously and listen carefully to what he has to say. Life was much simpler during the first ROSC courses at the Singapore Command and Staff College, which, to my deep satisfaction, is now the Go Keng Swee Command and Staff College, though it's a bit of a mouthful. We weren't troubled by the realities of actual combat. Reservist officers were reservist officers, not operationally ready national servicemen. That's another mouthful, but more accurate than reservists, because MINDEF has no intention of keeping them in reserve while full-time troops are thrown at the enemy. Nevertheless, even before becoming ORNS, reservist officers were keen to learn all they could about the great adventure of warfare. The very first ROSC was launched by General Chu, then Chief of Defense Force, in his own inimitable style. The first three courses had very senior public figures and professionals as students. This made me acutely aware of ensuring the credibility of the course, especially as there would be a formal performance assessment at the end. As Commandant SCSC, the problem as I saw it was, who was teaching what to whom? Yes, we had the legacy of the Israeli advisors and the formidable General Siegfried Schultz, but it was our own regular cadre of directing staff that provided the daily interface between the students and the teaching material. None of us were veterans of actual combat. Doctrine was formulated with input from the arms and services by Lieutenant Colonel Leslie Ter and Lieutenant Colonel T.A. Balasingham, one a signals officer and the other an engineer, both well regarded but equally unrepresentative of actual combat. The ROSC scheme was designed to prepare reservist officers for key appointments involving operational staff work at brigade level in the reserve orbit. Despite the havoc it could unleash during real operational planning, the SCSC directing staff would cheerfully accept the broad arrows that covered mountainous terrain, impassable swamps, and impenetrable secondary forests with equal panache. In a shooting war, our ROSC graduates would have had to unlearn a lot of SCSC DS solutions. But lest PM think SCSC really had nothing professional to offer, I assure him we have. For a start, many lessons contained inputs by Israeli advisors from the first command and staff force. The Israelis never stinted on sharing their hard-won combat experiences, which they turn into training objectives for the SAF, from recruit training to senior staff courses. We also had plenty to teach from our own rapidly acquired practical knowledge. We had the rudimentary beginnings of a workable operational doctrine, which eventually Patrick Choi took on with great success in trade-off. But in the meantime, the directing staff could disappear down many a rabbit hole when cornered by reservist officers who were quite blunt with their observations and unbeholden to the SAF for their career advancement. Granted no combat experience, we had expertise acquired from endless exercises. How combat engineers could expedite movement to contact, how our signalers could set up a communications network over the whole area of operations, how artillery could soften the enemy, cover own troop advance and keep the enemy's head down during an assault on a fortified objective, how to move troops securely to the fever, how to set up an active defense post position, how to use armor to break through, how to call for air-to-ground support, how to conduct night operations, and how to deal with casualties in the field. We also had plenty of experience in large-scale logistical movement overseas, long-range communications, and command and control of complex operations. Our experiences may have been one-sided, and very likely we were to get a rude awakening when the bullets started to fly. But we were, and remain, streets ahead of our potential opposition. And just as importantly, we were also building the foundation to quickly regain our balance if we got it wrong the first time. All this we could teach at the ROSC in the 80s and did. Perhaps that is why the reservist officers present here had a real interest in the courses and why many of them had faith in the regulars. In any case, for quite a few of them, despite their individual professional status, the payoff was that they were exposed for the first time to operating in complex environments. Moreover, on graduation, many reservist officers felt that they could hold their own with the regulars in operations. Perhaps I need not have felt so inadequate after all. A few words about our methods of instruction. Mostly chalk and talk, except we used whiteboards, marker pens, and Chinagraph. The classes were dressed up as syndicate discussions, training exercises without troops, field trips, and lectures, supported by that cutting edge of technology of the 80s, namely the laser pointer. But maybe the real classroom was the officers' mess, which hosted spontaneous debriefs during which attention was total, if a little blurred, and provided the bond which manifests itself in today's reunion. In the officers' mess, students soaked up the lore of the SAF, as you can see from the terms used in tonight's program. They also soaked up other things. But somewhere, just beyond conscious thought, was the notion of a computer-aided instruction, which, if I remember correctly, Major Chu Soon Kin was manfully trying to put together. Things have certainly changed. Colonel Ng Wai Kit, the current commandant, spent some of his valuable time updating me. He also sent me the college handbook for 2014, which confidently puts in black and white the mission of the college and how that mission is met. The ROSC is now the MSCSC and includes military experts as students. The operational component covers security studies, campaign and war studies, military technology, and the Malayan campaign. Operational staff work is beefed up for joint warfare, joint planning, joint battle procedure, and SAF intent and capabilities. Leadership development is a third element and goes into the context of leadership, communications management, team development, and advanced coaching and facilitation. Pretty sophisticated, I would say. The teaching format bears little resemblance to the 80s. Every student is computer literate, and computer-aided instruction is mainstream. It has to be, because among other things, a typical ops room in the SAF today is all third gen and beyond. For all I know, it may even be possible to program an entire teaching exercise, including scenarios, interactive student and DS responses, and doctrinal verification in a thumb drive. In short, a staff officer training simulator. A word about this reunion and the ROSC graduates here tonight. They joined their respective courses to better handle their post-full-time assignments out of a sense of commitment. After the course, many were assigned to senior key appointments in ORNS units. Having endured for more than 30 years and kept alive cohort by cohort with periodic get-togethers, that spirit of national commitment was clearly no passing fad. It is the stuff of true patriotism, a Singaporean identity. But it is patriotism with justifiable pride. I know the reservist officers on the first 3 courses embrace the pomp and circumstance of the military ethos with gusto. The highlight of the experience was the graduation ceremony conducted at the start. Given that courses for national servicemen conducted at Command and Staff College will hopefully remain a cornerstone of the college's curriculum, I am sure BG Benedict Lim, Commandant of SAF TMI, and Colonel Ng are way ahead of the curve on this and leave no stone unturned to systematically and realistically upgrade the course. Were I to review the course content, I would seek to take national service officers into greater confidence about the subtleties underlying Singapore's defense imperatives. Following the MH370 incident, someone asked about tracking unidentified flying objects heading to Singapore. I told him that I thought it would be a problem. We might have to deal with such a threat while it was in a neighbor's airspace and risk provoking an aggressive reaction, leading to God knows what. And yet it might be the right decision because of the carnage that can occur in our crowded heartland at the hands of a single suicidal pilot. Or take a recently topical example. Who would have thought that after 40 years, there remains a toxic strain of resentment in Indonesia against Singapore for standing our ground on the McDonald House bombing case, where 2 infiltrators in civilian clothes killed 3 and injured 30 innocent Singaporeans. Being the bulk of our officer corps, operationally ready national service officers must be in tune with our core defense posture. The NSCSC courses could be used for this, and while we are at it, perhaps the SCDF could also be brought in. My last point is that during one of the organizing committee's well-lubricated debrief sessions, and emboldened by how well things were falling into place, the organizing committee nominated me to propose setting up a war college program in SAF TMI. In fact, in the early 80s, SCSC did conduct 2 senior commanders courses under the guidance of General Siegfried Schulz, our German consultant. Since then, the SAF has gained a wealth of experience through far-flung deployments, multinational exercises, and humanitarian operations. This cache of practical experience should be exploited. So maybe a war college program is not such a wild idea after all. But one stipulation: NSCSC graduates should be eligible. When it comes to war, it is important that every major participant on our side sings from the same hymn book. Thank you.
Okay. Blow the candles first.
Yeah. You must sing first.
Yeah, all sing
What shall we
together.
sing?
Happy birthday.
One, two, three. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to ROSC. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, here we go. Together.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you. Very well
This is a memento.
Yes, okay.
This is a memento, the first, second, and third ROSC has asked me to write for PM, Mr. Vicente. And for those who do not read Chinese, I would just like to explain a little bit. It means 以法治国, use law to administer and control and rule the country. A country must abide by its laws. But to gain the heart of the people, we must use benevolence and humanity. 以仁爱民，得民心者得天下。That is by 1, 2, and 3. ROSC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Please join me in putting our toast to the nation and the public of Singapore. Thank you. Any young thing? One, two, three. Yeah!